And welcome back, everyone, to One on One with Aziz and Nate, hashtag Triple O Show. We just went over our top 8 teams in the Eastern Conference, and now we're going to go to the beast, the gauntlet,
The big bad.
the Game of Thrones, the Western Conference. So I struggled with this list for a little bit, man. I mean, you see my notes. I crossed out some teams several times because there's a lot of good teams in the West.
It is, man. And like we saw last season, the winning percentage between these teams is so slim that it's you might as well just start listing 1As and 1Bs.
Right.
But yeah, let me share with you guys what I have as my season preview here. And see if Z was in line with what I got. So, number one, I think we can all agree that there's one or two teams that could potentially take that slot. And I'm gonna go ahead and say they're either the Golden State Warriors or the Houston Rockets.
Okay.
Golden State Warriors, they have perfected their formula. Anytime they lose a guy, they bring one even better right back into the fold. And we're seeing that with, the trade-off for DeMarcus Cousins. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of time before we see him in action, but just the long-term repercussions of that could be pretty vast. Similarly for Houston, I think they did a pretty good job this summer picking up Carmelo Anthony. Obviously, they lost, a guy like Trevor Ariza, who is going to bring you some, two-sided focus to the game, both on offense and defense. But realistically, I see those two teams kind of clashing for the number one spot, even as they're kind of bringing some key guys into the mix. Like we said, Golden State just doesn't miss a step.
Yeah.
Any combats there, you think?
No, I have both of those two. I think Houston will be number one just because offensively, what they did last year, adding Carmelo in. And I think Ariza's definitely going to hurt. I think the absence of Luke Richard Mbute has been vastly overstated. Because I feel like a guy like James Ennis, while we haven't seen much of him, he's got athleticism enough to fill in a role to do things defensively that guys like Ariza and Mbute did, as well as Michael Carter-Williams. I mean, he's a lengthy guy, and you can put him on. He's not going to be a shutdown defender, but he's capable of playing defense, being in those passing lanes, and doing things at that wing position.
Yeah, they play a lot. I mean, we talked about this as well. They're an underrated team defense core, and with some of those guys coming off the bench that can give you some of those intangibles. I saw Carter Williams in the preseason had a pretty good run. Yeah. I like their depth.
I think the biggest thing is just going to be those guys wing wide, and then remember they've got Marquise Chris and Brandon Knight, who knows, but
and Capella. I mean, he's he worked himself back into that contract. He was a huge defensive stopper last year. So, yeah, they can throw some guys into some different scenarios.
And the most important thing to me about that is playoffs. And that's where that's really going to matter. They're going to score. Yep. We know they're going to score. I have a feeling there's going to be a game this year where they put up like 150 in regulation. Like, they're going to score. So that defensive stuff, the absence of a Trevor Ariza and Mbamute, is not going to really be a factor until they get to the playoffs. So I think they'll be fine. And then as far as Golden State, it's just like the conversation we had about fantasy and LeBron. Like, Golden State's going to be Golden State.
Golden State, yeah. Yeah, nothing's really changing over there. But, yeah, we'll see if Houston, like they had for their record last year, I think they also are going to be trying to chase that number one spot just for the postseason season.
They won 65 games last year. I don't think they'll win 65 again, but I do expect them to be over 60.
Yeah. All right, so this is where I think we may start to vary a little bit.
Okay.
I have the Oklahoma City Thunder in at number 3. Okay. Obviously they lost Carmelo Anthony, which I am not going to evaluate whether that was a win or a loss for them until the beginning of the season. Because that may allow a bit more cohesion and flow and partnership between, say, a Russell Westbrook and Paul George. Again, they're going to be looking for some offense, right? And that may prompt Paul George to maybe heighten his game. He seemed to be a pretty consistent guy last year, but I wasn't seeing the Paul George I saw in Indiana all those years. And again, that may be just the Westbrook effect, but they're always competitive. I think they were in the 4th seed last year, if I'm not mistaken. So depending on the success of some other teams, I don't see their productivity going down at all. If anything, like I said, it may just have a new energy that's brought to the team that doesn't kind of get drained down by Melo a bit.
Yeah, I think the major thing for them is just how long is Westbrook out to be? Is he going to start the year playing, and if not, how long is he out? Because that'll kind of determine how they get off running and how hard does Westbrook have to play when he comes back if they do start off 0-4 or something like that. But like I said, I think everything else will fall in the line with them being together for a full year. Like I said, Carmelo leaving could be a plus, could be a minus. We don't know, but
they're expecting Roberson back too. I guess you said in a couple months. If they can round out their roster, by mid-season and everyone's healthy and they're playing consistently, I can see them also chasing after a top 3 seed. Which leads to the Lakers at number 4. I think they'll be doing something similar depending on kind of the start of the season. If they really need to make that push towards a top seed. But like we said, this is a LeBron James team. LeBron James teams typically do pretty well. And with that assembly of guys, we talked about that in our other preseason show. I think they can, at least by midseason, come together with some unity and something that's taken them well into the playoffs. Because what they're going to have to do is establish those rotations for postseason. That goes the same for the San Antonio Spurs, who have at number 5. Really, that is, I think, for all those teams that have made perhaps some major adjustments, obviously the first half is just getting your feet wet. And I don't know if the Spurs can do that as successfully given all the injuries they're dealing with right now. They lost a couple guards I think both of them are out 2 weeks, right?
It's
or what I say, 2 months.
Derek
so
White
Murray.
and Lonnie Walker are out for 2 months, and DeJounte Murray's out for the year. So, like I said, if you're a Spurs guard, run.
If you can,
right?
I
expect Bryn Forbes though. I think he's gonna. I don't know if I think he'll start now since Derek White is out, and I like Bryn Forbes. So he's a scoring guard, and I think you need scorers in the NBA today. So I think he'll fit in well with a DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge in that starting lineup.
LaMarcus is going to be quite relieved this year. I think to have some of the attention off of him in terms of carrying them.
But they literally cannot afford for any other guards.
Seriously, yeah. That's and that's you hate to see that with the younger guys. You can kind of expect that with the older folks, but these are some young players. All right, number 6, I have the Utah Jazz.
Okay.
And this is where we may need to have some back and forth, but based on I don't want to call it a breakout last year for Donovan Mitchell. Based on him just arriving on the scene, seeing the growth of a guy like Rudy Gobert, who I've never been a fan of, but was seeing some other attributes in his game last season that, tell me he's a well-rounded player. He's not just a shot blocker. I don't know if, given the heightened competitiveness of the West this year, if Donovan Mitchell can have that much of an impact, and even the team can be that successful.
Mm-hmm.
But they had a great run in the postseason last year, and to me, that's the biggest indicator. If you can compete with Golden State throughout the season, then you know what to expect. I would hope in the playoffs.
Yeah. So, and I'll go over my full list after yours, but I don't have Utah making the playoffs this year, and here's why. So, you ever heard that old adage, you got to take one step back to take two steps forward? I feel like that's what's going to happen with Utah. We know what they're capable of, but being a young team, I feel like the success they had this year or this past season was unexpected. And now that you have it, it's kind of the same thing we've been seeing with Milwaukee. It's like you get this little bit of success, then the next year
since the expectations are raised, you might not meet those. Yeah.
And so I feel like that's just what's going to happen with Utah. So you got to couple that with last year, seeds 3 through 9 in the Western Conference were separated by 3 games at the most. So that's literally...
That's your weekend.
Right, 1 or 2 buzzer beaters going in, or, a bad call here and there. So I think that also... Are we going to get the Ricky Rubio that we saw last year this year? Because that was a big part of it. He was knocking down shots, had a slick back mobster here.
Seriously, he had the grease was on standby, man.
But I don't know if we can rely on seeing that Rubio, which was a big part, because if Ricky Rubio's scoring 20 points a game and he's making 3-pointers, even 1 or 2 3-pointers, that changes the whole dynamic of the way you guard a guy like Donovan Mitchell, or have, Joe Ingles, whoever else is you're throwing in there. Yeah. Because you can't afford to just help out other places. Yeah. So I'm not sold on Rubio being the Rubio that we had last year, and then having a full season of seeing what Donovan Mitchell did. I think teams are now better scheme and have defensive plans for him, and there's a thing called a sophomore slump, so that may be coming. And then the last reason I don't have them being in the playoffs is back to my NBA conspiracy about the officiating, that it's going to be tough for them to play defense the way they did last year. Because the teams that are going to be driving to the paint on them, I feel like you're going to see guys like Derek Favors and Gobert getting a lot more foul trouble than there used to be, in the way that the officiating looks like it's going to be tailored at the beginning of the year. It's just not going to benefit a team like Utah. So I do not have them making the playoffs, but prove me wrong.
Yeah, like you said, there's a number of seeds that, depending on the day, the time of day, those records could slip. So... Yeah, I threw in the Pelicans and the Denver Nuggets at 7 and 8.
Okay.
Again, those are a bit interchangeable for me, probably through that 6 through 8 seed. I talked about Anthony Davis. I expect him to have the best season of his career, hopefully. And the Pelicans looked good in preseason as well. So, given that he has some room to operate with DeMarcus gone, and that team may also kind of catch a second wind. And man, he's going to be playing for a contract soon. So Denver, look, man, I love some of their players like Jokic, Jamal Murray,
Gary Harris.
Gary Harris is cool. Gary Harris is a cool brother, but I don't know what to think about him, honestly. But I don't know. That team doesn't have. They have pieces, but they don't have that piece that, whether that's an excellent system or a strong veteran that's going to take them far. I feel like they're just still relying on their talent.
Yeah.
And that I don't always like to bet high on that.
So can Jokic be the guy this year that they kind of as a group get behind and lead them?
Right. Kind of the same way that, I'd say a Marc Gasol established himself as their, their workhorse or their grounded guy. We may see that. I could definitely see him in the preseason. Man, every time he got the ball, he was deliberate with it. He did not dance around. He went to work. And so that may be the mentality that he's taken in. And if the team can follow suit, then sure. I think all of those guys on that team are role players, honestly, outside of Jokic.
Glorified role players.
Yeah, man.
That's not wrong, man.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. Golden State has taken role players to be champions.
Yes.
And so who knows? I'm hoping they'll have a postseason run because I'd like to see them matched up with some other teams in the playoffs.
They were one game out of the playoffs last year, and I believe it came to the last game of the season too. So, like you said, that 3 through 9, 3 through 8 spot is it's a gauntlet out there.
And a lot of their guys are in they're getting into their third, fourth seasons. So this is the right time to start really putting it to work.
Yeah. So, my list was pretty much the same outside of, my Utah conspiracy. I had San Antonio at 3. Now, mind you, I made this list before their guards started catching the injury bug. But I still feel like they won 47 games last year. And that was with Kawhi playing 7 or 8 games the whole year. So you get a full year of DeMar DeRozan, he's not Kawhi, but he's still a great player. He was on a team that won 59 games last year, and he was a major part of it. So I think that, coupled with Popovich, the pieces that they do have, I think they're going to have to bring in some guys through free agency just to fill in those guard and wing spots. But I just can't count out Popovich, and I think having a full season with DeRozan and Aldridge together, we're going to see the Spurs that we expected to see. I had Oklahoma City at 4, so 3-4 was right there. I think they're a team, once again, it's dependent upon how long Russ is out if he doesn't start the season. But of the teams that were in the playoffs last year, outside of either Houston and Golden State, I feel like they had the least turnover. So you really just you subtracted Carmelo. You bring in Dennis Schroeder, who's probably going to come off the bench, but for the most part, you've got the same guys, same system, just a year under your belt to figure out, how do we work together?
Yeah.
My 5th team, I had the Pelicans because, like we said, we both on the same page. I think Anthony Davis is just on track to have the most amazing season of his career, and he really wants to prove why he's an upper echelon player.
Yeah.
I do worry, though, as always, they kind of have the same problem the Clippers have had. Who plays small forward? Like, what kind of lineups do you run? Because I don't think you can have a lineup with Davis, Randall, and Mirotic on the floor at the same time. But Davis paired with one of those two guys.
Right.
Drew Holiday and Elfrid Payton, even, who, he's an efficient guy. Not efficient, but effective guy.
He's effective for those short spurts, yeah.
So I think that wing, but, Anthony Davis is so great that he can make up for, certain flaws. Yeah. And we saw that at the end of last year when DeMarcus Cousins went down. After the Pelicans at 6, I have the Lakers, which I feel like they're probably going to start the year slow, and they could be anywhere in that 4 or 5 spot, but I feel like, one, they're going to be in a position where they're going to be trying to jockey for who do we want to play in the first round, but I feel like this is LeBron's first year in the East, in the West, and he's going to realize, I can't do that like I did in the East, where it's like, we can lose this game and play so-and-so. I feel like they're going to try to, but there's going to be so many things out of his control, because in the Eastern Conference, you can have a team that's a top 3 seed and say, we're playing Orlando tonight, so we can sit our guys and still beat so-and-so, whereas you're in the Western Conference, you can't say, we're going to sit our guys against Dallas or Memphis tonight, so I feel like they're going to be right there. They won 35 games last year, and you're adding LeBron. That's at least got to be at least a 10-win improvement. And with how close all those seeds were last year, 3 through 8, I think they're right there. But just because, like I said, Anthony Davis is going to have a great year, I have LA right behind them. At 7, I have Portland.
Okay.
I can't count out Dame and CJ.
Yeah.
Like we said, the Washington of the West, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
them. But Damian Lillard is still a primetime player. CJ gets better every year. There are other pieces, hit or miss, but they were the 3rd seed last year, and they've proven that regular season wise they can compete. Playoffs is another story, but you just got to get there. That's what's important.
Yeah.
They won 49 games last year. I still expect them to be in or around that same total. And the last team I had was Denver. I think, like I said, with my conspiracies about why Utah won't make the playoffs, I think that's why Denver does, because all these new officiating rules that I feel like are going to take into effect are going to benefit a team like Denver.
Yeah, they drive a lot.
Yeah, they drive a lot, and just the pace of play that they play at, they're a team that's going to score points, and that's what the NBA wants, or I feel like they want to see is more points. And Denver was one game out of the playoffs last year outside of Minnesota, and that was with Paul Millsap only playing a handful of games. So I think having Millsap back for a full year, you get another year of Jamal Murray and Gary Harris getting better. Will Barton's always going to be a guy giving you numbers. And Isaiah Thomas coming off the bench, I think is going to be a big thing for them. He's gonna.
It's a big question mark. Because, he fills in a lot of the offense, like you said. And he's also going to be playing. I think Denver is one of those teams that, to your point of them just missing the playoffs last year, they are going to do everything to make that extra push to not have that happen. And so you'll see a guy like an Isaiah Thomas needing to come in to really want to, I suppose, fundamentally work himself into the rotation as well. So I'm hoping all those guys bring their best this season. But again, like you say, you got a bunch of scratch marks on your list. We could be tossing these folks out or rearranging, mid-season just based on how close it is. So I certainly think everyone is going to have to take that shifted mentality. You can't take any games off.
Yeah, not at all.
Portland, Portland was the last one that I really hope they do create some momentum there, just because of, I don't know, it's kind of reflective of a lot of these teams who, Damian Lillard, I don't know if his career will progress in the way that it should just based on his circumstance, because I think winning adds to your repertoire.
Yeah.
Losing teaches you a lesson, but you can also learn how to lose. That's I heard a college coach talking about that. A lot of the times these college coaches are just teaching these kids how to lose. But, when you are put, for example, in high-stakes situations, Game 7 of round 3 or conference final, if you're not put in those positions, you're not basically brought up to a higher standard each year.
I think that's what we saw with Philly last year in the playoffs. Like you said, like they not being there, not knowing, you don't have that lesson. But now that you've been there, even though you lost, you've got to, okay, we lost, but what can I learn from this situation that I've been in? Yeah,
you can always prepare. And that's, again, goes back to the mentality. How do you prepare for a season which you don't even expect your own success? You're not going to get any better. But, yeah, Portland, man, I really hope they have a good regular season. And I'm certainly going to be trying to watch some more of their games just to give them some shine. But, yeah, we'll see. Those bottom 3 for me, you never know. Golden State, Houston, OKC, Lakers, and the Spurs, I certainly think.
They were in there.
Yeah, they sit at the same table.
Yeah.
But, hey, there might be a spot open soon enough.
So, 2 teams I just wanted to touch on real quick before we wrap it up. I think they have the talent, but I don't know necessarily that this is the year. What do you think about Memphis and Dallas?
I mean, I'm looking at Memphis. I like their rookie a lot, Jaren Jackson. But, man, they're like the Hawks. I used to like to compare them to the Hawks of the East in that they were always very solid. I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs. But I don't get any of that energy from them anymore. They were kind of that grindstone, nose to the dirt team. And I just don't even feel like they represent that anymore. But again, the West is just so competitive, man. Yeah. It's like, even if you are that can only take you so far.
Right. I think a healthy Conley and Gasol for a full year. I don't even care about Chandler Parsons anymore. But you have, Kyle Anderson, Jaren Jackson, JaMychal Green, who's shown that he can be a serviceable starting power forward. And then guys off the bench like, I love my Canadian Dylan Brooks and Marshawn Brooks as well.
Marshawn
Brooks and Brooks. Got a law firm right there.
Brothers.
All right. But, like I said, I feel like the talent is there. I just don't know if we'll see it this year.
Yeah. Again, we talked about teams wanting to blow up. That's the danger of going into a huge contract or bringing that onto your books with, like, a Conley, for example. You can't. If it's not working out over the course of a couple seasons, you can't truly reevaluate until that's moved. Because I'm not going to start playing my rookies or kind of these second-string guys if I'm paying a guy $100 million.
Right.
And so the same goes for Marc Gasol. If he doesn't leave in the next couple seasons, I don't know if they'll be given, the proper chances to their sort of underdeveloped players.
Right.
But I've always liked that team a lot. They kind of represent that in between to me of, say, a San Antonio Spurs and maybe even the Golden State Warriors. They have players. They have high caliber players in the sense that they're intelligent, well-rounded professionals. They play to the fundamentals. They play together. But that can only take you so far.
Right. And Dallas, what do you think about
Dallas? Hey, Doncic, what's up, bro? Dallas has got some fresh faces. DeAndre Jordan, their rookies. Dennis Smith, second year. I don't know. I'm not going to be paying them too much attention, but I think there will be a pleasant surprise. I see them, like you said, winning at least 5-6 extra games on top of the record last year.
I think so. Like I said, I think the talent is there. I don't know if we see it necessarily this year. Then also, like I said, I'm rooting for them to lose because Atlanta needs that pick. But like I said, it's very interesting. You got your, like I said, your Dennis Smith, your Doncic, Barnes.
I forget about Harrison Barnes, man. Like, that's another thing. Depending on a player's success, like, they could actually be to the fault of the team, because he's not a champion.
No, but I think he's in a situation now where he needs to be like where he was in Golden State, where now that you have Doncic, Dennis Smith, and DeAndre Jordan, then he can fall back into a role where he's a glorified role player as opposed to being your main option, because I think we've all seen that he's not that guy. It's, we'll see if they can come together. Again, there's so many different pieces, and they're not playing towards anything. So, I'll keep my rookie radar on lock, but not expecting much more than that. All right. Yeah. Well, that's going to wrap up our Western Conference preview. Oh, man. The NBA's one day away,
right around the corner. Again, I would hope y'all expect the same from us. I mean, these lists, we try to think a little bit about. And if we're crazy, just definitely let us know. Right. But how can you not expect Golden State to dominate again this year?
Right. Bro? Like I said, these are just our opinions. Feel free to leave in the comments. Who's your top teams? Who do you think some sleepers? Am I completely off base about this Utah? I don't think I am, but hey, I'm open
to tweet at us, bro.
I'm open to hearing about what you guys have to say. But thank you all for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one.